Silence is often mistaken for absence. People hear nothing and assume nothing is happening. They assume weakness, hesitation, or lack of confidence. But in reality, silence is rarely empty. It is usually controlled, and control is where power begins. In every conversation, every room, and every moment of tension, there is an invisible struggle taking place. Not everyone notices it, but everyone feels it. It is the struggle for direction, influence, and emotional balance. Most people try to win this struggle by speaking more. They explain, defend, justify, and fill every pause. Silence does the opposite. It waits, and by waiting, it changes the entire dynamic. To understand why silence gives power, we first need to understand how humans respond to uncertainty. The human mind is uncomfortable with gaps. When something is unclear, the brain automatically tries to complete the picture. It looks for patterns, meanings, and intentions. Silence creates a gap. And the moment that gap appears, the mind of the other person begins to work harder than yours. When you speak less, you give fewer signals. When you give fewer signals, others are forced to guess. They project their own thoughts, fears, and expectations onto you. This projection often reveals more about them than anything you could have said yourself. Silence turns observation into an advantage. In social situations, power often belongs to the person who reacts last. Immediate reactions are emotional. They expose priorities and vulnerabilities. Silence slows everything down. It creates distance between stimulus and response. That distance is where control lives. This is why silence can feel uncomfortable, even threatening. It removes predictability. People do not know what you are thinking. They do not know your position, and because of that, they lose the ability to manage you. Human communication is not only about words, it is about timing, restraint, and presence. When someone speaks constantly, their words lose weight. When someone speaks selectively, every word carries more impact. Silence works like contrast. It makes what comes after it stronger. There is also a psychological shift that happens when you remain silent. Instead of reacting, you observe. Instead of defending, you assess. Instead of explaining, you listen. This changes your internal state. You move from emotional participation to strategic awareness. Listening is often confused with passivity. In reality, it is one of the most active mental states a person can be in. When you listen without interrupting, you gather information. You notice tone, pacing, hesitation, and emotion. You see inconsistencies. You understand motivations. Silence creates space for this level of awareness. Many people fear silence because it feels like exposure. They worry that if they stop talking, they will lose relevance. They believe attention must be constantly earned through words. This belief leads to over-explaining, oversharing, and emotional leakage. Silence protects against this. When you explain too much, you give others material to question, challenge, or use against you. When you say less, you reduce points of attack. Your position becomes harder to define and therefore harder to undermine. Silence also regulates emotional energy. In moments of conflict, emotions rise quickly. Words spoken under emotional pressure often cause long-term damage. Silence interrupts this process. It allows emotions to settle before decisions are made. This does not mean avoiding communication. It means choosing the right moment to speak. Power is closely tied to emotional regulation. Those who can control their impulses tend to influence situations more effectively. Silence strengthens this control. It gives the nervous system time to reset. It prevents reactions driven by anger, fear, or insecurity. Another reason silence is powerful is that it changes how others value your input. When you speak constantly, your voice blends into the background. When you speak rarely, people pay attention. They wait. They listen more carefully. They assign greater importance to what you say. This is not manipulation. It is perception. Human attention naturally gravitates towards scarcity. Silence creates scarcity of words, and scarcity increases perceived value. Silence also disrupts social hierarchies. In many environments, dominance is expressed through volume and frequency of speech, but silence does not compete on that level. It operates outside it. By refusing to engage in verbal dominance games, silence shifts the rules entirely. People who rely on constant verbal control often feel unsettled by silence. They lose their usual tools. They cannot interrupt, provoke, or redirect easily. This loss of control often reveals insecurity rather than strength. Silence is especially powerful in decision-making situations. When you respond immediately, you accept the frame presented to you. When you pause, you create your own frame. That pause signals that you are considering more than what is being offered. It signals independence of thought. This independence is often interpreted as confidence. Not because silence proves certainty, but because it shows comfort with uncertainty. Being comfortable with uncertainty is a rare psychological trait, and rarity is often associated with authority. Modern life has reduced our tolerance for silence. Constant notifications, endless content, and continuous conversation have trained people to fill every moment. Silence now feels unnatural, but what feels unnatural is often what others are least prepared for. When silence enters a conversation, it forces a reset. The rhythm changes. The balance shifts. People slow down or rush to fill the space. Either way, their behavior becomes more visible. Silence also protects identity. The more you talk, the more you define yourself publicly. Once defined, you become predictable. Predictability makes influence easier. Silence keeps parts of you undefined, and what is undefined remains flexible. Flexibility is a form of power. It allows adaptation without explanation. It allows movement without announcement. Silence preserves this flexibility. This does not mean silence should be used to avoid responsibility or communication. Avoidance weakens trust. Intentional silence is different. It is deliberate. It is measured. It has purpose. Intentional silence is used to listen, to think, and to choose words carefully. It is not withdrawal. It is preparation. In long-term relationships, silence often reveals emotional maturity. It shows the ability to tolerate discomfort without immediately trying to fix it. It allows space for others to process their own thoughts. This space can lead to deeper understanding than constant discussion ever could. Silence also changes self-perception. When you stop filling every moment with words, you become more aware of your internal state. You notice impulses before acting on them. You recognize patterns in your reactions. This self-awareness strengthens internal control. Internal control is the foundation of external influence. People who cannot control their own reactions are easily controlled by circumstances. Silence interrupts automatic behavior. It creates choice. Choice is where power lives. There is a quiet confidence that comes from not needing to speak immediately, not needing to be understood instantly, not needing to prove anything in the moment. This confidence is not loud. It does not announce itself, but it is felt. Others sense it through calm presence, through steady behavior, through the absence of unnecessary explanation. Silence communicates boundaries without confrontation. It signals that not every thought deserves a response. Not every challenge requires engagement. This selectivity preserves energy and focus. Energy management is another overlooked aspect of power. Constant talking drains cognitive and emotional resources. Silence conserves them. It allows attention to be directed where it matters most. Over time, silence shapes reputation. People begin to associate your words with intention rather than noise. They expect substance instead of reaction. They adjust their behavior accordingly. Silence does not dominate through force. It influences through restraint. It does not demand attention. It attracts it. In the end, silence is not about saying nothing. It is about knowing when to speak and when not to. It is about understanding that power is not always expressed through action. Sometimes it is expressed through patience. The strongest presence in a room is often the one that does not compete for it, the one that observes, waits, and chooses carefully. Silence allows this presence to exist, and in a world that is constantly speaking, the ability to remain silent has quietly become one of the most powerful skills a person can have.